Steve, episode 19, the Broadway block. Not a good game for the Rangers. 6-3 loss to the Washington Capitals. Big fight between Tom Wilson and anybody in a blue shirt. How do you feel about that game?
Well, man, it was another game that we get horrendously outshot, 39-26, and a game that we were winning at some point. So it's especially tough. I liked the goals from Zibanejad, both from Panarin, which I actually called before the game started. And Kako is beautiful 2-on-1 with
From
Lafreniere.
I'm still salivating over how good that was.
Yeah, so it was a solid play in the neutral zone. Kako does a great job, looks up the ice, he sees what he has, kind of shuffles between the options for a second. And whenever the pass happens before you actually get to the face-off dots, you could expect that one's coming back across. So like if the first pass happens directly at the face-off dots, it's your job as the person receiving the pass to shoot the puck because there's not enough time and you're moving at such speeds that you'll be right on the doorstep before the next pass comes across. So anytime you see that pass come across between the blue line and the dots, you can expect that the original passer, in this case Kako, is going to be streaking towards the net and is going to want to make a play on another pass that comes back across. And passes like that have like a 30% chance of going in. So the first pass happens, you can almost smell it like, okay, Laf's going to pass it back. The way he receives it, however, kind of a beautiful move to get across him. And Kako, I think, even a better move to score the goal. Most people would have just tapped at it, and it would have been one of those
block save.
Yeah. But instead of just tapping it towards the net, the difference in him now from I think last season is he takes that one extra second to make that move and pull the goalie over and just completely bury it on him. So that was a beautiful play from start to finish, starting with Rooney in his own zone, getting the puck onto Kako's stick, and away they go. Other than that, the game kind of took a dark tone with the penalty from Tom Wilson, which was actually assessed to Buchnevich as well, and there was a whole mess of penalties that happened there. But not a good look if you're the
Washington Capitals, yeah. That Tom Wilson, we know he's a repeat offender. The NHL and George Parros decided that it was not significant, which obviously for Artemi Panarin, he will not play the rest of the season. Little to be known if it's because he's just hanging it up for the season because we're not really playing for anything, or if he actually did get injured in that play. It was just tough to watch because it was like I felt like we didn't have anyone out there to defend us. Not that even if we had Brendan Lemieux still in the lineup, would he have done that much? We saw him last time fight Tom Wilson. He stood his ground, but he ended up with a big black eye. Strome right there. He was the first man to pull Wilson off of Booch while Booch was face down. Just really sad that the NHL really didn't discipline that as really what we expected they would be. We know George Parros is the head of NHL player safety. He didn't really address the situation right. Rangers came out and hit him right after with the comment like, hey, we don't find this to be acceptable. And as an original six franchise, that's coming from them. We really don't speak out a lot. And James Dolan, he's always a backlight in the Rangers organization, even though he's the owner. He let that be said out there for everybody to be heard. So we'll see what the NHL does with that comment. I think they're not going to like it. Last time a franchise spoke out was like about 2 years ago. I think they got a pretty hefty fine. Yeah, it will be interesting. Wilson's back tonight. Who's going to take him on? Who you got, Steve?
I mean, talking size, probably Barron, right? He's like 6'5", and he was hitting people. But I think so. Like my dad sort of is the intel for some of the things that we talk about, or me and him will discuss something that you and I will talk about on a regular basis. And something that he mentioned to me today is, I mean, if you're the Rangers, this sounds corny as all hell, you got to just come out and beat them. You want to really rub it in, take a team that's mathematically eliminated away from the playoffs and take out that #1 seed and really just tighten the screws on them. It's going to be hard to do that without a guy like Panarin. But if you really want to prove your point, you go out losing games to the Sabres, a team that we just smashed. So the hockey, the way that works, man, I mean, we could come into this game pissed off, and that might just be enough to get them going. If I'm going to call it a name, probably a Brendan Smith, probably somebody who just, is easy to get fired up and probably just going to come out and take someone's head off. But at the same token, man, you got to play reserved because you want to show these young guys how we are as a class organization and moving forward that it's not something that we condone for any team. That being said, Nicoletti brought this up on the broadcast. There's still 20 plus teams that would kill to have them play in their jersey. So Wilson, that is. So it's tough because the way that the game struck. If you look at when that occurred, he took a team that was losing a game and flipped the script, and they ended up coming out on top and winning that hockey game. So say what you will, but he was chosen 16th overall for a reason, and it's not just what he brings to the table physically. The dude's a leader. He stepped up big time this season. He actually wore a letter on his chest and has contributed all season long. You and I have spoken about the want for a player like that in our locker room that maybe just doesn't play to that dirty kind of level.
Sean
But you
Avery,
saw-
Sean Avery going to take number 10 and get out there for us tonight?
Well, I mean, you saw, guys like Ryan Reeves, for example, being traded at the deadline for a first round pick. And that just goes to show you how coveted a guy who from the Lightning. He played well on the wing for McDavid, scoring 70 points on the wing for McDavid. So everybody goes, okay, the kid's got a scoring touch. I say kid, he's older than we are. Then he goes to the Blues, lifts a cup for the Blues, playing for a team that he grew up rooting for. So it shows that heart and that grit, that type of player that he is. Then he goes to the Bolts and plays well for them on the fourth line and helps them win a cup. So it shows you how coveted a guy is that can play that physical level, that if he pots 10 goals a year, he's playing he's playing to his worth, and he's playing to keep an NHL job. I think there's plenty of room on our fourth line for a maroon type player who can really just be chippy, be gritty, cash in for a few hits and coming up, with a goal every now and again. And I do agree with you, but that was the second line that was iced. That was Panarin, Buch, and Strome. So you need it all throughout your lineup, guys that aren't going to shy away from stepping up. And that's why a lot of times you find these guys, the role that they're in as a defender, because they play more minutes and they're going to be out there when this stuff occurs. So moving forward, a guy like Keandre Miller sort of jumps out to me, someone who's got that size that if they put on some muscle, he's going to be a really intimidating player out there.
Morgan Barron.
Morgan Barron could do it. But if you look at like who we have in the pipeline, Matthew Robertson comes to name, Brandon Schneider, Brandon Schneider comes to in general. So a lot of people are calling for us to address that need. I think that it comes from within our prospect pipeline.
That'll be interesting to see. We definitely need somebody. All these kids got to put on more weight. We saw Kakko just with a little bit more weight and 1 year NHL experience. What that did for him this year really opened up his game. Be interesting to see Laugh next year. Love Laugh's attitude every game. Like he will be losing, and I'll just see Laugh still going out there, smiling, putting up points, and making hits. And he doesn't shy away from anybody. So you got to like that coming from Laugh. We're just definitely a young team out there. Besides needing the enforcer, like on the first Dowd goal for them, I think it was Ruunanen. He just kind of got run over, and Dowd just had the breakaway right there for that. So that just comes from stepping up more at the blue line, right between the neutral zone, and really sticking ahead or making some disruption and not just getting run over. but that comes with NHL time. Like, for us, the laugh and cackle goal, I'm still celebrating it. But other than that, there wasn't too much to that game, Steve. We got them tonight. Who do you think's in net? We didn't really talk about that.
I think you go with Gorgiev. I think he's already been confirmed. And I think that if these games were in a position where the points mattered, maybe Igor continues and just rides out. But a little bit of this has to be either showing off Gorgiev to the rest of the league as, hey, look, this guy's still good. There was a lot of talk last year of DeAngelo and Georgiev maybe being a part of a bigger trade piece, which, I mean, everything that's happened, the amount of things that have happened between that happening and this, you got guys like DeAngelo that aren't even on the roster anymore. Georgiev's values, I think, in my opinion, dropped a little bit from last year, having had a shaky middle of the season. Had he taken that and really
was, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but last year he was like, could be maybe number one. This year it's like he's a solid backup, and I say it with like a question mark, like,
No, you're absolutely right. That's sort of my point, is that I think that he's gone down, if anything, in value, and that maybe we could have actually grabbed somebody for a DeAngelo and for a
Agreed.
Gorgiev. I think the reason to start him now has to be for external reasons, for like, hey guys, look what we have. Because if you look around the league, there's a lot of people that are struggling in goal this season. Really shook some teams, and you can see what a team is really made of when they lose their starter. Maybe even if it's just for COVID reasons, and for 2 weeks you're not going to have your number one guy. So I think for a lot of reasons Gorgiev gets the start, but I don't think they're anything pretty. I think the reasons are not, hey, we want to give Igor a break. I think it's more like, if you can get a couple more quality starts, maybe someone will look at you as a number one goaltender. And that might happen after. I mean, you could, but I think there's really, you only, in my opinion, you only have Kincaid on the roster so that you can offer someone to Seattle, not that they're going to pick him, but someone who qualifies under the rules of having played 50 games in the NHL. So to be submitted as a possible pick, you can't just give them a rookie. You have to give them someone who has had 50 NHL starts, which Kincaid did back on the Devils seasons ago. So he qualifies the bill as far as someone that you can submit without feeling like you're going to lose anything as an organization. And the fact is, he was a free agent sign. So I think that was just when we got him. Remember talking about what your point, that last year Gorgiev was looking like he could be a number one guy somewhere. We were probably assuming as an organization, gee, it would really be a shame if we got plucked this guy who ends up becoming a great goaltender somewhere else. So as an insurance policy, I think that's when Kincaid came along. We offered him the contract so that we had someone who fit the bill, and that we can just go, here's our goalie submission. Igor's selected under rookie contract rules, and then Gorgiev gets selected under our pick a goalie that you get to keep kind of thing. But I could be wrong. This is just all projection. I think that in the end, he probably stays, but this at least gives him another chance to look good in front of a team that might be trying to buy him. But
or it could have the opposite effect. It could hurt his value.
It could. Here's the thing. I think if you're willing to take a flyer on a backup guy, you have to be willing to, with, regardless of the last game of the season. I think that if anything, it just makes him look better having won his last game rather than not. But
Agree. All right. Well, I think that wraps it up for episode 19 today of the Broadway block. Let's hope someone knocks Tom Wilson's block off tonight, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, gee, it would be really great to have Trouba in the lineup for.
I was just thinking that while we were talking about it, I was like, man, it would be really nice to have a big hit from Trouba right on open ice on Tom Wilson.
Yeah, but guys got to get better, and hopefully we can come out and at least make a statement. Whether that be, I saw somebody mention don't even come out and skate, don't even play the game, just if you really want to prove it, because who does that affect other than, it doesn't affect us. It would only affect the Capitals. So if you really wanted to tighten the screws on them, maybe as an act of, but here's the thing. if you're Wilson, you have to be skating around almost scared tonight to make some kind of a play, because then you do face suspension, then you do miss some of the playoff games. So I would just hits that aren't egregious by any means, and he keeps it relatively under the radar. So hopefully it's not a bloodbath tonight, but I'll talk to you soon, Joe.
All right, thanks, Steve.